you must prioritize God even over your wife and children. Yes, so why would I be brave enough to say a statement to that degree? And it's because it's true. As I've explained before, the children fall on the wife falls on the man falls what? On God. The most dangerous thing in the world is a man who is not submitted to something. That something should be God Almighty. Because the fact of it is we are born alone. We mostly have to journey alone. We're going to die alone. And yet, because I was sent from heaven to earth to fulfill a mission to where I will then be judged on whether or not my name is in the Lamb's Book of Life and whether or not I fulfilled my purpose is now going to determine the rewards and the roles that we have in heaven. And so while life is very much a journey, right, of friends and family, it's mostly singular. Because to do the things that God has called me to do is going to require a relationship and a reliance on Him that can never be realized through others. What I have to share with you in terms of why a man must submit to God first and foremost is for a couple of reasons. Number one, as a man, as a godly man, I better not, I cannot, I should not ever rely on anything or anyone, right, to be my substance, hope, or motivation, because I am doomed to failure at that point. When you are chosen for a purpose and a destiny, you are going to largely live in isolation. You are going to encounter situations, circumstances, emotions that unless you're called to that level, you're never going to experience that. So the journey of greatness is often a very lonely road. Personally, there have been times I've had to travel the world for weeks at a time, 8,000, 10,000 miles away, entirely alone. I don't know anyone there. And yet what? It was the conviction. It was the confidence. It was the boldness. It was me understanding that I was ordained to do the things that I'm doing. Right? And that if those things are going to come to pass, then guess what, Lord? You better protect me, because ultimately, if that ain't what's happening, then I guess this is where the journey ends. And this means that my purpose must be complete. And if the purpose is not finished, then what? You'll continue to sustain and keep me. Otherwise, then I guess my mission is completed. So, yet again, as a man, I build my hope and I encourage myself within myself. Why? And where? From the Word of God and what He has to say about me. Why is this important as it relates to real estate, businesses, and success? Is because it's the truth. When you look at the journey of a great man and woman who accomplished the impossible, you're going to notice some very consistent patterns. Number one, it is marred with a lot of failure, but it's not really failure. It's failing forward. See, every failure creates a stepping stone. It's not a stop. And so you would be wise to build a bulletproof mindset, because that's what it's going to take. And so part of the reality of needing to rely utterly on God, and beyond the fact that it can be incredibly isolating, one of the first things that will have to happen in your journey as you rely on God is you are going to have to be delivered from people. A mentor of mine's, his name is Frankie. You know, I call him my uncle because he's older than me, but he's really my cousin. That was one of the first critical lessons he taught me. Is, Shaun, if you are going to be massively successful and effective in the arena that God has called you to, you better learn to be delivered from people. Well, those lessons began at roughly 1920. And the fact of it is until you are delivered from people, you can never be a deliverer to people. As a builder of people, as a builder of cities, what I realize is that one of the key marks of if you're dealing with a real man, ladies, is real simple. If everybody like him, he a beta simp. Why? Because he's constantly playing to appease other people. And let me tell you why no woman respects a nice guy, which is what a beta simp is, who wants to be loved and liked by everyone, is because we all can tell you ain't authentic. You faking, right? You're playing to whatever you think the role is to be liked and accepted. What does that tell me? That means you're weak. That means you're soft. It means you ain't built like that, right? So a true man, a true leader is oftentimes going to be very polarizing, meaning 50% will love him, 50% will hate him. That is probably when you are seeing an indication of when you're dealing with a real man, right? Think about your favorite teacher, right? If you're honest with yourself, it was probably the teacher that a lot of people didn't like. Myself in high school, my favorite teacher, she was my biology teacher. Most people really disliked her. I disliked her in the moment. But yet, when I graduated, she was the only teacher I thanked. Why? Because I understood that your methods were designed to bring out the best in me. Because you were never going to coddle me becoming the worst. So, how else can you tell, right? When you're in the presence of a real man who really presses into the things of the Lord, is when I walk in the room, the atmosphere changes. And it should. Meaning, what's the saying, right? The mouse run and play when the cat is away. The whole point of it is when a real man walk into the room, everybody. Why? Because they know accountability walked in the room. They know responsibility walked in the room. Because the fact of it is while that should always be rooted in love, and it is, the fact remains that human nature is we prefer the path of least resistance. Human nature is we are lazy. Human nature is we want to do as least as possible and get the most beneficial outcome. Life don't work that way. And so guess what? As a man, if you're not rooted in the things of what the good book says, you're going to be pimped and punk faked out of your greatness and the greatness that you are required to bring out in others. See, as a man, I am the man and I am a father in every circumstance. Don't matter. I don't try to be those things. That's who I am, right? When I walk in the room, we all know who the leader is. Not because I said so, because I've been equipped and qualified to be that, right? What? Because as a man, my confidence and my competency comes in what? The fact that I've had to build everything in my life. The difference for a man is our value is determined by what we build. The reality of a woman is her value is determined by preservation. What I mean by that is what makes a man and the true emphasis of a man are the things that he builds, creates, and overcomes. A woman, she is born with her value. She's beautiful. She has something that every man wants. She didn't have to work for that. She didn't have to earn that. She didn't. Now, that is no disrespect, but that is the truth. And as I always say, truth is controversial. The truth don't care who's offended by the truth. So ultimately, this understanding that you have to rely on God is why, because you're going to take a lot of shots and a lot of opinion, but I don't care. Why? Because I am playing to the audience of one, meaning I am playing to be accepted, approved by God. Any and everyone who knows me, that's what you hold me accountable to, is God's way. What does his word say? So I understand, though, yet as a man, there is a fine line, right? So as an example, what the good book tells us, right, is for fathers not to provoke their children. Now, why I'm very loving, there's not a day that goes by that my children don't hear, I bless you, I love you. I also understand as a man that children spell love time, meaning how much time do I spend, right? And so there is not a moment where I haven't been at 99% of my children's events and activities. Even when I had to take 31-hour flights from around the world just to make it on time to be at the game. Why? Because it's important. I have one opportunity to be a great father. And in saying that, what that means, kings, is you better know who you are and you better know whose you are, right? Meaning, what does the king expect of me? How do I need to lead things? What does that mean? That I am required, right, to provide, protect, proclaim, profess, to build up. And so when the good book says, fathers, do not provoke your children, what that basically means is, right, I have to go about things in a very loving way. Now, that will mean that, a firm conversation will need to happen when it's necessary. Then that's what we're doing. That's called courageous conversations. Why? Because that same good book tells me that he who refuses to discipline his child does not love them. You heard that correct. Don't argue with me. Argue with God. That he who refuses to discipline his child does not love him. Now, what does discipline mean, right? It depends on the age. The word also says what? The rod of correction drives foolishness away. So the whole point of it is when my children were younger, right? Discipline was done in love. I never did it out of anger. I never did it when I was upset. I would discipline them, let them calm down. 20 minutes later, as my children will tell you, walk in the room, would lovingly sit down, explain to them why that was necessary. I forgive them. I bless them. I have to make these important decisions so that you can become the individual of God that he has called you to be. And immediately after that restorative conversation, they went about their day. I went about my day. Now, if there were necessary consequences in terms of not being able to play video games for a week or cell phone taken for a month, that was part of the love gesture too. Because you're going to feel me and you're going to hear me. And guess what? It's the reason why they are the stellar standout people that they are, who first and foremost live for God. They know what their purpose is. They know the exact process of how you're going to go about choosing a future spouse. Why? Because who you serve, who you'll become, and who you'll marry are the three most important decisions. That is the purpose of a parent, is that I am supposed to teach you those three things. The whole evolution of life, right, is finding him and knowing what our purpose is, me encouraging and challenging you and elevating you to be the woman of God that he has called you to be, the man of God that he's called me to be, and the man and woman of God that my children have been called to be. Because that's what we doing around here, right? We living on purpose forever and always. So why does a man need to be rooted in chasing God first? Because until you are the best version of you, you cannot help her or your children. So that means every day I have got to pay the power bill, and I do it faithfully, meaning I'm on my 8th year of reading my annual Bible study plan. Number 2, every day, prayer, confessions, praying in the Spirit. Every day, making sure I check up, encourage, motivate. How was your day? What was the best part of your day? What was the pit of your day, right? I'm very traditional, where as often as possible, we're going to sit down, no devices, no TVs. We're going to eat like a family, and we're going to have a real conversation. Why? Because the greatest amount of impartation you can do to your children, especially when they're teenagers and you ain't popular anyway, is that 20 minutes at the dinner table. Why? Because I have got to continue to love you and lead you. Why? Because everything in the world is going to trick you and pimp you. So what I'm going to bring you through my success and failure is going to be all facking and no capping. So in all of that, as the founder of Developer Nation, I want you to click the link below and become a part of Developer Nation. If you have a vision to become a real estate expert or a real estate developer, we are those people. We will educate you and equip you to understand what to do, what not to do. Once we teach you how to identify lead opportunities, you bring the deals to us. We will go to our vendor capital partners, ranging from family offices, high net worth, private equity, hedge fund, and we will get that deal placed, assuming that it is feasible and viable. Ultimately, you will encounter and learn throughout the entire journey, as well as being an equity owner, because at Developer Nation, we are a community practicing group economics to create generational wealth for our children's children. But in order to do that, we, good sir, got to be the best version of us. We have to be the most effective leader in relationships. We have to have absolute clarity of our real purpose, because ultimately we do everything with the end in mind, working it in reverse. As always, I'm Shaun J. Ford, real estate developer and author. And as always, all things work together for your good because you are loved by God and are called according to his purpose. I'll see you in the next episode.